Hey there, welcome to your latest AI tips and tricks show. I'm Kieno and Per. Now, my normal co-host in the show is Per Lagerstrom, right? A real genius when it comes to business and a man who's embraced technology and is showing corporates and other people how to land the use of technology effectively. Well, today he's actually going to be one of our guests. So we're going to be chatting to him. We're going to be chatting to Mike Abel, who's also the chairman of M&C SAATCHI ABEL. And we're going to be talking about a business that Per co-founded called Sens. So great to have both of you here. Per, let's start with you. What exactly is Sens? So let's just imagine that we're at dinner together. I've got very little understanding of technology. Explain to me in English what Sens actually does. Why does it exist?
The business world is full of decision makers that make significant decisions around where to allocate resources when it comes to marketing and consumers. Which product to invest in, what feature to invest in, what media, what message, what platform. Historically, those decisions have been taken with very flimsy data in your hands. Sens fixes that problem. We put predictive data in the hands of decision makers, predictive data that is sourced at a fraction of the current cost, at much faster lead times, and with a much better experience for the consumers themselves.
Thanks for that. But Mike, let's move on to you. You've decided to invest in Sens. We know you as the chairperson of M&C SAATCHI ABEL. You've been an ad man all your life. Why this business? Why did you decide to invest in Sens?
The reason I decided to get involved in Sens was when Per approached me and discussed what Sens was all about. You know, having worked in the marketing and advertising industry for 35 years and seeing very little innovation actually in the research space, and being obsessed as I am with asking the right question, determining the right question before even trying to find the answer, what I saw over here was a way of getting far closer to the truth that can transform business. And so I think a lot of decisions are made based on the old adage of garbage in, garbage out. And looking under the bonnet and being a very curious person myself, I saw something hugely innovative and exciting and scientific over here in terms of making much smarter business decisions. And so for me, it was a no-brainer to get behind something like this, not just for me, but for the global marketing and advertising industry. I mean, that is the primary thing. You know, they say that a rising tide raises all ships. And so I don't actually want this to be about me or about Sens or about M&C SAATCHI ABEL. I want this to be about enabling far better decisions for the corporate world globally in terms of understanding customers and understanding employees and delivering a far better experience.
Now, it's really good to have technology, but I don't believe that technology is it. You need to be solving for problems, real problems, fixing things for people so that, you know, when you provide the solution, they run for it. So what exactly are you fixing? What are you solving for as Sens?
Look, historically, when we want data to take decisions, we turn to the tools kit that we have. We use the horses we have in the stable, and they were surveys, focus groups, and interviews, and it goes all the way back to the 1960s. That's what we had. Now, the reality is that produces something that is better than nothing. But with what we have now, we can fundamentally change that equation on both the quality of the data, the cost of the data, and the lead time of that data. And that's the game changer.
Yeah. Well, I actually think that our stable doesn't even have horses. I think it's got a Model T Ford parked inside there. I think it is really that transformative in terms of how you're going to be looking at data. And as you say, if you get something better, quicker, and for less, well, I mean, that is transformative in and of itself.
And look, when we started, we solved exactly that problem. What we learned from our clients in the first 2 years is what we overlooked at first, and that is the ability to have a almost live conversation with consumers at scale. So historically, the market research is split in quant and qual, because that's how it was done. One was surveys and one was focus groups. And actually, with the technology we have now in Sens, we completely blur out that division. And in effect, we can deliver quant research at quality at scale.
Hold on for a sec, right? So Qualcomm at cost, whatever, right? So you've given us all these little abbreviations, but what do they actually mean in English?
In English, what I'm saying is we can actually now have quality conversation with our consumers at scale that captures the truth of what the consumer really thinks and feels about what we are supplying them with.
So if you look at qualitative research, generally it's very costly. There are many barriers, not just cost, but venue, time that the respondent is available to be researched, bias because of how they're being researched. And so what this does is it actually eliminates all of those barriers, because you actually have a technology flywheel that can interview people, get much higher quality data using behavioral tech to assess the truth, the veracity of what the research respondent is telling you, which has never been done before. Before, whatever somebody tells you within a qualitative research methodology, be it a focus group or be it an interview one-on-one, you don't know if they're telling the truth or not. Now we do. Now, that's not meant to be intimidating. That's actually meant to enable customers that are telling you about their experience with the brand, or employees that are telling you about the experience with the company, to actually tell the truth, to give you useful stuff to improve their lives. Because we're not extracting data from them for our own purposes. We extract data in order to improve the experience of the employee or the customer.
All right, so what I'm going to do now is sort of dive into the technology side. You talk about all these sensors that read and get to understand our responses, but how accurate are these sensors? What if someone is actually quite a happy person, but they look like this? So just explain to me how that actually works.
Look, technically, there's a large number of sensors that captures a non-verbal signal from us as human beings. Facial emotion, tonality, semantics, body language, how you wink your ears, whatever it might be. Yeah. Actually, the key to get to the truth is not to listening to either one of those in isolation, but it's many sensors, one truth. And the tradecraft behind this that's taken us years to develop is to be able to take multiple inputs across a broad spectrum of signals from human beings and make sense out of them.
Right, so we've dealt with the tech, but the big question is, are you a science business before you're a tech business, or you're a tech business first? How do you see yourselves?
We're a science business first, an AI and tech business second. Our science team drives everything, and the AI and the tech is there just simply to enable us to scale it. The AI and the tech are enablers. They're not in and of themselves the game changer. It is when you understand us human beings and what makes us tick at the deep scientific level, and then you can get some very clever AI and tech people to spin up the business around it. But if the science is wrong, the rest will be wrong.
That's right. And I think that what I've been really impressed with is the deep understanding of psychology in the team as well. So, there's the science, there's the behavioral tech that emerges out of psychology, and then their warm bodies, that are actively involved in developing the technology to assess it. So it's not like a blunt tool where you've got an algorithm running without kind of thousands of years of human study, human emotion. What are those motivations? And is the tech adding up to those emotions? And I've seen that be so liberating, I guess, in unlocking those true insights, because what we've never been able to do before is to work out the variance between what's being said and what's being meant. And I think that that's where we found the intersection now.
That it's true, and what we truly mean, we are sharing that with others, but in a person-to-person interaction, your intuition will deduct that. What we're using is technology to read what intuition reads in a way that scales that up to get to what we truly mean, not what we say.
All right, so if one looks at use cases, though, I want to try and make this a little bit more tangible. What are the current use cases and the future use cases that you see for Sense?
Look, what we're solving right now, what we have solved a lot in the last couple of years, are fairly gnarly business problems. So a retailer might say one category, one product range is cratering. Where did those customers go? We can actually go and find out, why did they leave that brand and that product? Why were they attracted to something else? And what truly was it that attracted them at pinpoint level? That's on the qualitative side. On the quantitative side, we worked with a retailer recently, and Mike knows the story really well. And they're actually very proud of their customer service, and they use NPS and similar scores. And even at board level, they see themselves as top notch. The reality was truly different, and they actually had indeed a large segment of followers, but they had an equally strong segment of anti-followers that, because of adverse event experiences over the years, actually built up a trust deficit, and they had no clue. And we were then able to take this combination of qual and quant and model the propensity of their consumers to leave them should there be a viable alternative. And the number that was willing to leave them was in excess of 50%. And that's very different from being I'm strong about my customer service and I'm proud, into actually understanding strategically, if a competitor shows up on my turf, I'm going to get mass desertion.
100%. And if one had to quantify that, that's a multi-billion rand decision. Correct. That they're making right there based on incorrect data, incorrect information. I mean, one of the things that persuaded me to join the firm and become involved was when you showed me that study of a very large corporate that had a high staff satisfaction survey and a high staff turnover. You can't have high satisfaction and high turnover simultaneously. And this was based on research that they had done. And then they brought in Per and the team, and you guys uncovered what those real sentiments were, much like you discovered for those customers. And then that enabled them to bring down the turnover rate dramatically, because the last thing you want to do is to hear that your employees are happy when they're not. Even when the employees themselves think they're happy, but they're not. But they're looking at other jobs elsewhere. I'm happy, but let's see what else is out there. No, you're not happy.
All right, so this next question is not meant to be a trick question, but it's a question I ask all entrepreneurs, all business people. And that is, what business are you actually in? And let me demonstrate. If I'm into creating things and sending them wherever they need to be sent to, and I see myself as a creating business, that's all I'm going to focus on. But if I see myself in the let's get things safely from A to B business, it opens up a world of opportunities, including IoT devices and technology. So the question to you, to both of you actually, as the representatives of Sense, is what business are you actually in?
We're in the business of providing highly accurate information to decision makers.
I'd like to add to that, because I kind of see us in the growth business, being one of customer acquisition on one hand and customer retention on the other hand, because I think those are the clear benefits that come out of the technology. So if you had to say, why would you appoint Sense? I'd say to acquire more customers than your competitors and to retain more customers than your competitors. And then the same on the staff side, to be able to attract talent by understanding their motivations and then being able to retain talent. And those are the key issues in business today. Unless you are meeting the needs and exceeding the needs of your staff members or your customers, you're going to lose them, particularly when new entrants come. And, there's that first immutable law of marketing is it's better to be first than to be better. But if you can do both, if you can be first and better, well, then that's a different story.
Okay, now, one industry that I think I know quite a bit about is the media industry. I spent about, 30 years there. Kind of still in it right now. But the one thing that I always had questions about is how we actually gauged what audiences want from either radio or television. And you would have these little focus groups where you give people chips and give them tea, and you ask them a couple of interesting questions, and now you decide your programming for the year, the next 5 years, based on those conversations, on scientific questions that's been put to them. But how can Sense improve media outcomes? And the reason I ask about this is because at the end of the day, the media molds minds, and we need to be as accurate as possible when it comes to understanding what people need.
Yes, I have absolutely no doubt. I mean, the Holy Grail is accuracy. And so if you are offered something that gives you something that has a much higher level of dependency on what you're hearing and what you're thinking, you can unlock any avenue. You know, in the olden days, we used to talk about making a television commercial. Today, you don't make a television commercial. You make a commercial, whether you watch it on your mobile phone, whether you watch it on your tablet, whether you watch it on TV or any other device. What you're developing is content. And so I think that we've almost moved into a platform neutral world. And I think it's the same with insights, because I think insights can be applied literally anywhere within a business in order to unlock growth opportunities. So for the media industry to have something like this, I think unlocks a myriad of opportunities at every aspect and angle of the business.
Now, Mike, I've been following you for yonks. I've known you for years. And the one thing that I always love about you is that you're a South African optimist. You're an Afro optimist as well. It's just so refreshing. But now you're chairing an Irish business. What does that mean for South Africans? What does that mean for us?
I think the benefit for South Africa and for the world is to bring something remarkable to this market that can unlock opportunity for South African companies. So if you're looking at South Africa specifically, I think that if we can help companies grow, helping companies grow solves the biggest problem that our country faces right now, which is unemployment. And the only way to tackle unemployment is through growth. And if South African companies can grow profoundly because they understand customers better, well, then that's going to start solving an unemployment problem at the same time.
All right, gents. So we can talk about the fancy tech. We can talk about getting insights at scale. But some people are still scared. They're still afraid that they could lose their jobs as a result of tech. How do you respond to that?
It's like any innovation in any industry. You get a disruption. And out of that, something new emerges. And I believe that's been true in our history. You can go back hundreds of years when we started to learn to do things in a different way. At first, you got a disruption. And out of that, other innovative players absorbs this and actually use this to become more competitive. And it changes the balance, the competitive balance in industries like retail by having this kind of data changes the balance. So players that will start to get almost real-time data on what the consumer really thinks that is predictive of sales and retention outcomes, they will get an edge.
They will. And I don't think that technology loses jobs per se. I think technology creates new jobs and other jobs. You know, people are very creative in how they go about living their lives. They don't only have one direction. And I think that I don't know what most of the carriage drivers did once the Model T Ford replaced the horse carriage. But they did something. They didn't now stay at home and say, well, they're no longer horse carriages. Whether they became farmers or whether they went to work for a car factory, we don't know. But they found jobs and they carried on. And people develop and evolve around technology and around the progress of humankind. And I think that AI has a profound ability, and behavioral tech and the space we are in, to advance humanity, to improve our experience of the world. And my word, does the world not need that right now?
It is time for us to wrap, though. And one talks about technology, the difference it can make, the jobs it can create and repurpose. But what about the blockers? People who might sit in the C-suite, senior managers who don't get it. and become the blockers to organizations that should really be adopting technology. What would your advice to these various boards that appoint these managers and the exco? What would your advice to them be when it comes to the caliber of team you need to have in your business?
Look, the first thing you have to start to do as an executive at that level, you have to assume that the very basics and fundamentals of your industry will become disrupted much sooner than you thought. If you get your mind around that and you start to see the opportunities within that, then you're on the right path.
I think that firms don't really understand often what business they are in. And you asked us the question earlier, what business are we in? And I think that if a Nokia had understood that they're in the business of communication, they would have run at that rather than the existing technology that they had. The same with BlackBerry, these unbelievable market leaders that failed to see the innovation. If Kodak had understood that they were in the business of memories, not film, they would have been able to evolve very quickly. And I think the challenge over here is for boards to be curious and to keep an open mind. When I did a TED talk a couple of years ago, I spoke about problems being bullies. When you run away from them, they chase you and they beat you. But if you turn on them, and I think there's an opportunity over here to harness AI, to understand it, to embrace it, and to run fast towards it. And then you will unlock all of the opportunities that Sense provides in terms of far better insights. Because why would you choose to have a 3 out of 10 view of what the customer's telling you when you can have a 9 or 10 out of 10 view?
Per and Mike, thank you very much for your time. Really insightful, really looking at the cutting edge technology that Sense has developed. And this is really what AI Tips and Tricks is all about. It's about taking revolutionary technology and the way it's applied and getting you to understand it and hopefully even adopt it in your own business to give your business that edge it needs, right? So stay tuned to AI Tips and Tricks. We'll be back with more technology that puts you ahead of the competition.